In this episode, Netflix versus Disney. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to compare stocks. In this episode, I wanted to talk about streaming wars, the competitors that are trying to vie for your attention and dollars when it comes to entertainment media streaming over the internet. The streaming wars started in 2008 when Netflix teamed up with Roku, yes, that Roku, in July to be able to launch its streaming service, which initially only had a handful of shows, so it was included in the DVD rental bundle that Netflix had been running up until that point. Fast forward 14 years to today, and now every single entertainment company thinks that it can have its own streaming service, all charging $10 to $15 a month, even if they have nothing to stream. Yes, Paramount Plus at $9.99 a month, I'm looking at you. Anecdotally speaking, when it comes to cord cutting, the reason I got rid of my cable package was to save money. I went out and bought an HD antenna so that I could get all the local broadcast channels, and then I added Netflix because it had a really good variety and a large swath of everything that was available out there. But in the recent years, every company has decided to hang on to its own properties in hopes that it could start its own streaming service. In fact, the streaming sector has become so fragmented that if you add all of the different services together, you will easily exceed any of the cable providing packages that were available before this even started. For me, I only have Amazon Prime, and that's because I have the delivery service, and Disney Plus because I bought the intro package, which was 3 years for the price of 2 before it launched. And instead of subscribing regularly to any of the other services, I just wait until they develop a lot of content, subscribe for 1 month, binge watch all the content I want to see, and then cancel after that 1 month. So is it just me doing this, or is everyone doing it? And if everyone is doing this, is there really as much money as all the stock analysts and pundits in the space would have you believe? So in this episode, I wanted to compare the two big baddies, Netflix and Disney, and see which one could do better. Hello. I like streaming services. Oh, no, you don't. That was a different kind of streaming. So as I was saying, in this episode, I wanted to compare the two biggest in the space, Netflix and Disney. I wanted to pit Netflix, ticker symbol NFLX, as the leader in the space, the best in breed pure play on streaming, against Disney, ticker symbol DIS, a media conglomerate who has, in addition to the Disney Plus streaming service, theme parks, movies, cruise ships, hotels, bed sheets, action figures, candles, and so on. You might be wondering why I didn't also include Amazon with their Amazon Prime service, and even though it is similar to Disney as a conglomerate with the Amazon.com e-commerce store as well as Amazon Web Services, since it's not a dedicated entertainment play, I wanted to keep it to those two, Netflix and Disney. In this episode, we'll look at the fundamentals of both Netflix and Disney, and then I'll show you a buying plan for each one if I didn't already hold shares, and then I'll show you my own winner and pick, who I've had a long-term investment in, and I'll show you where it's come from and where it's going from here. First, let's take a look at Netflix, and you can see that its price to earnings ratio is very reasonable at 33.86. Now, it might sound like that's not reasonable, since I have said in the past that a growth stock with more than 30 is considered overvalued. You have to remember what we're looking at here. When you compare it to Disney head on, you can see what I'm talking about. Disney's PE ratio is 83.36, and this is pretty crazy because it used to be that Disney was incredibly undervalued, regularly having a PE ratio of under 20. However, after the Disney Plus service launched in November of 2020, the stock price skyrocketed and ended up having a PE ratio that was equivalent to Netflix's before Netflix saw a huge sell-off in 2022. You can see that Netflix's 52-week range is quite astronomical, with a low recently of $330 or around there and a high of $701. In its last earnings report, Netflix announced that it was seeing a slowing in growth in the United States, and since that was the backing for a lot of the valuation, Netflix sold off in a really big way. This reduction in its stock price has made it so that even Yahoo Finance sees it as being fairly valued, which is really unusual when you're talking about how Yahoo Finance looks at growth stocks like Netflix. When we switch over to Disney, you can see that its 52-week range is similar. Disney has also sold off significantly from its all-time highs, and currently is right between its 52-week 52-week low and its 52-week high. And just like Netflix, Yahoo Finance considers Disney fairly valued. Now you might be wondering, why would it consider it fairly valued with a P/E ratio of over 80? That's because in Disney's case, now that we're reopening, the theme parks are expected to be a lot busier. The cruise lines, which have not been online since the beginning of the pandemic, are going to come back, and the same with the hotels. And even though the movie theaters have been popular since they reopened, the chances are that they're going to be even more popular when Disney starts releasing movies back into the theaters. Because of all these factors and the fact that Disney Plus is not the main income generator for Disney, Yahoo Finance and other analysts have considered Disney as being fairly valued despite its high P/E ratio, because as the parks and everything reopens, the earnings will increase, which will decrease the P/E ratio at the next earnings report. So when it comes to the fundamentals between Disney and Netflix, they're head to head. There isn't really one winner over the other. From here, let's take a look at each of them on a chart to develop a buying plan of what I would do if I didn't already hold shares in one of them. Let's start with Netflix, and we'll draw a Fibonacci retracement from the bottom of the pandemic to its high in 2021 to see where we could find levels. You can see that once Netflix pulled back from its all-time high at $700.99, that the first retracement level down here at $595.09 did provide support. However, then Netflix broke through it. During the sell-off, it stopped briefly at its 200-day moving average, the blue line, before retreating even further and finding support down here at the 38.2% retracement level at $529.58. However, that didn't hold either. You can see this huge gap, and this is what happened after its last earnings report. On this day, Netflix reported negative earnings by saying that the growth was slowing significantly for its outlook, and that resulted in a dramatic sell-off. Netflix bounced shortly before hitting the 78.6% retracement at $348.30, finding a new high here at $458.48, except that didn't hold, and once Russia invaded Ukraine, the sell-off continued from there. Netflix's most recent low is down here at $329.82, and you can see that it's bounced up from there. You can also see that there's quite a bit of price action around this $348.30 mark. However, since it's found support above it, I'd probably use this day here at $354.72 as my first buy. From there, since there's enough of a gap, I probably would use the $329.82 support as my next buy. And then when you look into the past, you can see that there's additional support down here on this day at $290.25, which would likely be my next buy. After that, we've got the pandemic low at $252.28, and if you look in the past, you can see that there was a bit of support above it here at $257.01, so that would probably be my next buy. And that gives us 4 buys. So what I would do in this case is I'd probably buy half of my allocation, 50%, at the first buy at $355, and then use 10% increments at each of the additional 3 buys, saving the final 20% to make 2 additional buys if we saw Netflix sell off lower than where it is right now. In order to find those support levels, we are going to have to pull back a lot further than what we're looking at, and you can see that down here on this week here at $178.38, there was additional support. If you wanted to be more aggressive, you could use this point here at $231 as your next buy, followed by the $178.38. However, what I would likely do is I would skip that $231, use the $178.38 as my 4th buy, and my final buy would be this last retracement down here at $130.23. However, in all likelihood, I don't think Netflix would ever pull back that far. However, as I always say, I'd rather have that extra money on the sidelines just in case Netflix did sell off, rather than be all in at higher levels and miss the opportunity to buy when it sold off further. Next up, let's do the same thing with Disney and create a buying plan by looking at its chart. When looking at Disney, let's do what we did with Netflix and use a Fibonacci retracement from the low during the pandemic to its all-time high in 2021. Since Disney was originally started in the 1920s, it has significantly more price action than Netflix, and you can see that it does respect the Fibonacci retracement levels even more, with it pulling back to 23.6% at the $173.66 mark. When that didn't hold, Disney broke down and broke through the 38.2% retracement before heading down for the 50% retracement, which didn't get get to until after Russia invaded Ukraine, in which case the 50% retracement also didn't hold. After that, you can see that Disney bounced back up, found a little bit of support at the 50% retracement, and then broke through it again, where it almost got to the 61.8% retracement in its most recent sell-off in March at $128.38 as its low. For me, I would probably start my position with the close of this day around $133.44. Since it closed so hard there, I think it could potentially find support there in the future, so I would use $133, probably even $135 as my first buy. However, after this point, since $128 is too close for me, I would pull back on the chart to find additional levels of support. You can see, looking in the past, we have a different close here on this day at $118.32, which would be my next buy. After that, going back into the past again, you can see there's a lot of price action around these points, and I would actually probably use the low of this day at $108.50 as my next buy, followed by this point of support here at $99.66, and then I would look toward the bottom. Now, it did sell off to $79.07, but you can see that a few days after its low, it did find significant support here. So if I was feeling more aggressive, which I typically am, I would use $81.09 as my last buy. Whereas with my Netflix position, I would have saved 20% to put to work at lower levels. Disney is highly unlikely to get this low ever again. Because of this, I would use the $81 level as my last buy, and I don't anticipate that it would see it. In fact, I don't anticipate Disney will make it down to $100 again. But like I said with Netflix, I'd rather be prepared for that eventuality and not have the money go to work rather than have it sell off below $100 and have me all in at higher levels with no money to put to work. So between Netflix and Disney, which one do you think I'm invested in? When you think about everything I said during the introduction of the video, it's probably no surprise that my pick is Disney in this space. I don't have a significant amount of confidence in the streaming sector as its own play. I would rather have something where the streaming sector is just a kicker of the overall company. And in Disney's case, it can still be extremely profitable even if the streaming sector does not perform as well as the pundits expect it to. So let's take a look at my own position on a chart. I'll show you where I got started in Disney and where I am now. Disney is one of the oldest positions in my investments in play portfolio, where I originally opened it on February 14th of 2012 with my first buy at $41.70. Since that's more than a decade ago, we're not going to go over the play-by-play because nobody really wants to see that. I'll show you what happened during the pandemic sell-off and now where my position is in 2022. Before the sell-off started in March of 2020, I had sold enough of my position over the years to reduce my per-share cost to negative $15.16 a share. Negative per-share cost means that I've taken all the original capital out of the position in addition to enough profits where each share in the position adds $15.16 to the portfolio's bottom line in addition to the value of the share. Given how Disney is reliant on tourists and customers coming into its parks and cruise lines, the pandemic sell-off was not nice to this company. You can see that I do practice what I preach as I made a number of buys on the way down, adding capital back into the position before Disney hit its low of the pandemic sell-off down here at $79.07. From this pre-pandemic point to its low, Disney sold off a total of more than 45%, dropping 46.32% from its pre-pandemic high down to the low of the sell-off. I made my last buy on March 18th, 2020, which happened to be Disney's bottom. Although I didn't even get close to the $79.07, I bought at $86.39, which is a little higher, and this left me with a per-share cost of $22.28. As Disney recovered from the pandemic, I wasted no time taking profits. I wanted to make sure that I got my capital back out of the position just in case Disney decided to try and test its lows, since back then nobody knew exactly what the stock market was going to do once we worked our way through COVID. I made my first sell after the pandemic bottom on June 3rd of 2020 at $121.59. And the idea here was just to take some of the money I'd put to work back out of it. So I only reduced my per share cost by $4.33 down to $17.95. Once Disney Plus launched in November of 2020 and it totally made the stock skyrocket, I decided that I was going to take my capital out on December 1st with a sale at $150.44, which reduced my per share cost to negative $2. However, after I made that sale, Disney started to outperform dramatically and reached all new highs. So it was at this point in 2021 that I decided I wanted to put money back into the position, even though it was higher than where I had taken my profits. I actually gave the position quite a bit of time, not making my first buy until August 3rd of 2021, where Disney found support at the 200-day level. I made my buy at $173.06, which raised my per share cost to $8.15 a share, an increase of $10.15 from where it last was. After that point, it was time to let Disney go for a little bit longer to see where it wanted to go from here, and it wasn't until November, where it started selling off, that I decided to make my next purchase. I made my next buy on November 11th at $161.45, which left me with a per share cost of $21.80, an increase of $13.65 per share over my last position price. I made my next buy on November 29th, just a little over 2 weeks later, at $146.06, which left me with a $26.95 per share cost, an increase of $5.15 from my last buy. And again, Disney was still not done selling off. So I made my most recent buy on January 24th of 2022 at $134.13, which leaves me with my current per share cost of $31.21, an increase of $4.26 from my last buy. Now that can seem like a pretty significant increase of a per share cost. However, you have to remember that my first buy was at $41.70 in 2012. So this still represents a 25.16% decrease from that first buy. From here, I do have every intention of continuing to add to my Disney position if it does sell off. However, I will be waiting for that $118 mark before I add more, and I don't really know if we're going to see it sell off that low. To me, the streaming sector is one of those specialty sectors that I do want some exposure to, but since I don't have enough confidence that the sector will be as successful as many people think it will, I want the kicker, not the pure play. If I truly thought that streaming was going to be a leader and there would only be a very small number of participants taking a huge pie, I would bet on Netflix. But since I am skeptical, I'd rather keep it with Disney, where it has a conglomerate of a whole bunch of other entertainment options in addition to Disney Plus. Let me know what you think in the comments below. For more, check out my website, getirk.com, which is always 100% free. Watch my other videos, please hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.